I feel it's important to say that I never thought anyone involved with our experiments would or even could get hurt from our work, let alone killed. I still find it hard to believe what I saw. I fear that my two employers have become so fanatical in their ambitions that we are all in danger. Yet, I dare not attempt to stop this madness. For it is not love of our scientific breakthrough that compels me, it's my love for her. I started working for Dr. Sahina and her husband, Dr. James, 3 months ago at Commerce Neurobiological Laboratories. She is brilliant, radiant, queen of my dreams. Driven by pain, constantly hurting in her upper back, she is determined to find a way to solve people's suffering without being addicted to opioids. That's why I originally joined their team. They were working on something I believed in. No more addiction to pills. No more reliance on outside fixes for your pain. The fiber optic light laser shoots microscopic light atoms that pass through flesh and bone, melding the light-sensing protein rhodopsin to key parts of opioid receptors in the brain. By using light to activate the receptor pathways, the brain releases natural pain-relieving chemicals, eliminating the need for pharmaceuticals. This is revolutionary. I was all in. Dr. Sahina led our 3-person team as we first worked with mice that suffered from arthritis. Improvement in their mobility and health was immediately observable after 1 session with the laser. Then it was a dog named Bella. We paid the family well to keep Bella for a week. The poor animal could hardly walk on her hind legs due to terrible arthritis. After a few sessions with us, Bella could walk without pain. It was amazing. I couldn't wait to see what the follow-up weeks would reveal. I hoped Bella would continue to self-produce the pain-relieving stimuli when she ached, proving that our method is a viable solution to synthetic narcotics. But Dr. James had other plans. Our nightly experiments were altogether different in purpose. Led by Dr. James, we focused on the pineal gland, also known as the eye of God. For our experiments, new neurological connections formed within the pineal gland, activated by the light atoms, stimulating dormant brain functions. Bella was given sleeping agents nightly as we penetrated her brain without incision. A simple blast of light for 10 seconds is all. Then we put a bowl of food in one of 4 rooms with all 4 doors closed. Every time Bella woke up, she would walk without limping, thanks to our daytime experiments, and scratch the correct door with food behind it. Bella was having out-of-body experiences every time. That was the only explanation for her knowing where the food was when she awoke. It's as if her spiritual self found the food, and when she returned to her body and stirred awake, she remembered where the food was. Of course, this was just a theory. I found the study odd but interesting. Lacking validity, I thought we would suspend the night games. That's when Dr. James brought in a human subject. His name I won't mention. I dare not say it, for I am riddled with guilt. The poor man was elderly and polite. That's really all I knew. He smiled at me as I gave him the sleeping sedative. We targeted his pineal gland and let the man sleep for nearly 2 hours. With great fascination, I watched his blood pressure and heart rate accelerate at times, as if he was experiencing something that caused changes in his biochemistry. We were all eager to hear what the man had to say when he awoke. It was startling to us all when he sat up screaming, "Help me! Oh God, please! Help me! It's coming!" I tried to console the man, as did Dr. Sahina, but he was hysterical. "No, it saw me when I was out," said the man. "It chased me back here. You have to help me." Dr. James finally helped us restrain the man. With the 3 of us holding him down, Dr. James tried to ascertain what he means by out there and to describe what exactly chased him. Was like a garden of colors. The man spoke. Beautiful colors. They floated and were alive. I played with them not too far from here. He points toward the back wall. Then I saw it moving along the garden. I thought it was a shadow, so I looked up at those amazing stars and moving objects in the sky. But there was nothing above to cast that ghastly, dark image closing in on me. At this point, I was thinking the poor man had a weird dream. But it was at that moment that I saw something in the reflection of his eyes. It was black, like a shadow that moved with purpose. The man screamed and pointed to the back wall. Dr. James pressed against the man's chest with his forearm as Dr. Sahina and I held his arms down. It's here. It's here. Help me. I beg you. The man screamed and squirmed beneath our grasps. I turned to face the back wall and saw nothing. Yet when I faced the man again, I saw the thing clearly in the reflections of his eyes. There is something in the room with us, I proclaimed. Look in his eyes. It happened so fast. It's still hard to process. The three of us saw the reflection of a tall, black, insect-like creature with multiple limbs, long eyes and a pointed snout come up behind us and pierce the poor man's skull. I saw that strange snout move above the man's eyes and stab him above his brow, where the pineal gland is. The three of us could not hold him down as he was viciously yanked off the bed with great force. Without the mirrors of his eyes, I, nor the doctors, could no longer see the astral creature that held the man straight up in the air by his head as it drained him of life. Dr. Sahina was the only one who grabbed the man's ankles and tried to pull him down, as I admittedly was too dumbfounded to move. The man's flesh dried up in seconds, and then his organs and muscles caved inward. We could hear the long beep of the flat line as he was still hooked up to our equipment. His body was suddenly released, and Dr. Sahina, who had been yanking on him, pulled him down to the floor with a thud. His face and body looked as if he was drained of life a century ago, and we had just dug him up. But we hadn't dug him up. The man was dead because of us. I knew that our work was done and that I was probably going to be in a lot of trouble. How wrong I was. In the wake of what happened, Commerce Neurobiological Laboratories was shut down. The mice were sent to other labs. Bella was sent back home to her human family. As for the poor dead man, I swear I do not know what had become of his body. I was isolated for 2 months at home, telling no one about what happened as I waited to be questioned by police or someone about the matter. Eventually, the only person I heard from was Dr. Sahina. Originally, we had hoped to acquire funding with our work in eliminating the need for pharmaceuticals. We failed in that quest. According to Sahina, I could tell how much that saddened her. However, we did hook one investor interested in our research with the pineal gland and astral projection. I found that hard to believe, given the fact that a man died. That's when Sahina told me not to feel too badly, as he was a convicted criminal that Dr. James somehow got from a halfway house. And furthermore, she added that what happened to the man was a result of location and equipment that we used. That's all she was able to say on that matter. She urged me to trust her and confided in me that there was still a chance that we can return to our original mission of ending opioid addiction if we work for the investor first and continue our experiments with the pineal gland and astral projection. This time, Sahina promised no one will get hurt because we will be working in a safer laboratory with new and advanced equipment. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to see her again. Once again, I agreed to be their lab assistant. Somehow I feel more like their guinea pig. So here I am, alone on the rooftop of a circular facility the size of a fast food joint in the middle of nowhere. My two employers have driven off without explanation, saying only that they will be leaving the facility once a week. This is the only place I can get reception and will send these updates out to the world during their outings. Who knows? Maybe this will somehow keep anything terrible from happening to me, the doctors or the volunteers that arrived yesterday. There are 4 volunteers, all of them young and vulnerable. Each of them here for different reasons. Hopefully, I will have a chance to explain their individual situations in more detail over time. But first, I must explain why I fear for their safety and mine. It's the room located in the center of this facility. The room itself is the advanced tool Dr. Sahina spoke of over the phone. The particle disruption chamber, PDC, vibrates every molecule in the room at a subatomic level to the same frequency as the astral plane. I have yet to discover how the investor and the doctors transformed the light frequency we used with a laser into a vibrational frequency. From our control room, we are going to emit this vibrational code from the metal walls of the room. a vibe that Dr. James calls the Eye of God frequency. The pineal gland is an antenna that the Eye of God will be able to broadcast with during PDC experiments. That is the first thing Dr. James said to me when I arrived. Not even a hello or hey. Sorry about that guy we somehow fed to an astral parasite. No, he was drunk on fanatical science as he went on to say that our camera system within the room should capture anything and everything inside the vibrational frequency of the room. I said, so this time we'll be able to see the creature with our own eyes if it attacks someone again. He scolded me for being negative and told me that if I mentioned that incident again to him, the volunteers or anyone, that there would be legal consequences. Honestly, I felt like he was hinting that the blowback from snitching would be far more severe than legal retribution. I told him I understand. Surely there is more to the astral plane than the one shadowy leech we witnessed at the first laboratory. After all, the poor man also mentioned lively lights that seemed benign in a beautiful garden. That gives me hope as our first PDC experiments with our new volunteers start tonight. Maybe I am mad for going along with this. Or, B, I'm in the right place at the right time to be a part of a historically scientific achievement for humanity as we unlock the doorway between body and soul. Astronauts is what the volunteers fondly call themselves. They are not as afraid as I thought they'd be. Of course, ignorance can be bliss, for a while, anyway. Eventually, the curtain always gets pulled back. Tonight, we will vibrate the astronauts and their room to the astral plane frequency and continue our experiments all week long. I am not religious, but I don't mind asking those who are to pray for us. Pray that no one gets injured or killed, not again. I just want to sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the mechanical whir of the space heater keeping the bedroom at a somewhat livable temperature. Snow sleepily drifted past the window in large white clumps. I shifted my gaze over to my wife, her face shrouded by her dark hair, who was fast asleep. I watched her eyes twitch underneath her eyelids. Jealousy. I have not slept at what feels like days. Every night I twist and turn, get up, piss, take a melatonin gummy, lie in bed, and wait. Sometimes I give up and end up watching Star Trek reruns in the living room until morning. Again and again, I am so tired. Tonight felt different. Tonight, I thought to myself that the stars will align and the asshole sleep god who decided to torment me with his sick jokes will finally leave me alone. I take a determined breath, get up, and do my insomniac routine. I close my eyes and try to allow myself to fade away. Even if it's just for a few minutes, I jolt awake, clutching my sweat-soaked t-shirt. My chest heaves before I cough, my tongue scraping against my throat like sandpaper. I turn to reach for water on the knit stand, then stop. My wife is sitting up in bed, completely still. She is staring out into the hallway, her hair draped around her like a black curtain. Cassie. No response. What is it? I creep up next to her to maybe catch a glimpse at what she saw. I turn to look at her face and I'm met with dark, unblinking eyes. Her pupils are huge. They stare right past me, into the void that looms from the doorway. What's wrong? Her eyes meet mine, and I feel panic skitter up my spine like little spiders. She smiles, a stupid, horrible, lifeless grin. One that I have never seen before. A black substance pours from her lips and onto the bed in a small pile. Sand. I backpedal away from her and onto the floor with a thud. Pain rockets through my shoulders as I slam into the doorframe and into the dark of the hallway. She still sits on our bed, unmoving. Something moves in the darkness ahead of me. It travels low, with a swoosh swish whoosh as it scampers across the hardwood floor. I watch it stoop into the corner adjacent to the stairwell, emitting a low, raucous moan. Dexter, I called out to our Labrador retriever, a senior and on his way out, but still beloved in our household. I was able to make out his silhouette against the banister, shuddering where he stands. I slowly make my way up to him, my feet crunching on something gravelly along the floor. Slowly, I approached the sad little thing hunched by the stairwell, my arms outstretched in front of me. "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" Dexter turns around, his sad eyes meeting mine. He lets out another slow whine, but it stops abruptly as he begins to sink into the floor, his features melting with him. My stomach lurches and I scramble forward, trying to pick up what's left of him, but his body just crumbles in my hands and sifting through my fingers. I cry out, but I'm stopped by another heaving, dry cough. I can feel that same horrible sandpaper move along my esophagus and into my lungs. I retch, and more black sand spews from my mouth. I crumple onto the floor, unable to stop disgorging the horrid stuff. I can't stop. I can't breathe. I can feel my vision darkening around the edges. Oh God, I can't breathe and Tiber. I jolt awake, clutching my sweat-soaked t-shirt. My head snaps to my wife, sound asleep beside me, Dexter cuddled up in her arms. The dark void of the hallway is grinning at me. I will not be sleeping again anytime soon. At first, it was a small bruise on his cheek. When I pressed my husband on it, he told me he had an accident at work. I had no reason not to believe him. Accidents happen. But it was slightly odd he would have an accident while punching numbers into a computer. It would have made more sense if he was working in construction. I didn't think much of it until he came home the next night with a black eye. If his excuse was another accident at work, it wasn't going to cut it. When he got home, he tried his best to avoid me. So I knew something was up. What happened to your eye, honey? I could see his brain ticking over as he tried to think of an answer. Some idiot cut in front of me at the gas station, and when I confronted him about it, he went berserk and punched me in the face. For as long as I have known my husband, he has always been a terrible liar. That's awful, honey. Did you report him? I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Just paid for my gas and got the hell out of there. I could tell from his face he was lying to me, which only made me suspect he was doing something other than working. Over the next few days, his injuries were getting worse and his lies more elaborate. He started to get more distant and a little less like my husband every day. Someone was hurting my husband and it was taking a toll on him. He stumbled in the front door, barely able to hold himself up. I could see the pain etched into his face as he fell into my arms. My God, what happened to you? As he struggled to get words out of his mouth, I looked down and saw the bone sticking out from his limp arm. The doctor at the hospital pulled me aside when he was finished seeing to my husband's broken arm. He had the same concerned look on his face after my husband's explanation for his broken arm didn't satisfy his curiosity. You're the fourth couple this week in my surgery with similar injuries. While not unusual, but all having the same explanation, is. The doctor's words rattled around in my head on the drive home. If my husband wasn't going to tell me what was going on, I was going to find out one way or another. I got in my car right after my husband left for work and started following him. He worked in an office in town, so I was suspicious when he started traveling in the opposite direction. He stopped his car outside an abandoned building, which was strange because it was in the middle of nowhere. He waited for others to turn up, all men who looked just as battered as he was. Then it hit me. My husband's favorite film was Fight Club, and I read somewhere that fight clubs exist, but not in a million years would I think my mild-mannered husband would be the kind of guy who would enjoy having his teeth knocked out. I waited until the men disappeared through the doors of the abandoned building before getting out of my car. I peered through one of the many dirty windows and watched as my husband along with the others started taking their clothes. Why do they have to be naked? I thought to myself. They all lined up as if they were waiting for something as men in white overalls collected their clothes. What happened next was like something straight out of a horror movie. I had to cover my mouth to stop myself from screaming. A giant praying mantis came crawling out of one of the doors. I wanted to run in and pull my husband out of there, but I was too terrified to move. The praying mantis crawled over to the men before it stood on its hind legs. The creature loomed over the men, who just seemed to stand as if awaiting their fate. Suddenly, one of the men stepped forward and began doing a strange rhythmic dance. The praying mantis watched on as the man continued to dance. Suddenly, the creature lashed out, hitting the man and sending him flying across the concrete floor. Next, my husband stood forward and started doing the same strange dance as if he were trying to impress the praying mantis. The creature swayed from side to side in rhythm with my husband's dancing before embracing him with its grasping forelegs. I was suddenly sick to my stomach as he started having sex with the creature. Just as I was about to run back to my car in disgust, I watched as the praying mantis bit down on his head and began chewing it like an apple as my husband came. When the whole mating ritual ended, the men in white overalls dragged my husband's headless body to another room. I was overwhelmed with a barrage of emotions, fear, disgust, and grief, that I didn't know whether to cry or scream. My legs felt like jelly as I made my way around the back. A bright light radiated from one of the windows at the back of the building. The source of the light came from large heat lamps that hovered over a group of large eggs. Some seemed to be rattling as if they were ready to hatch. The torment of watching my husband die barely sank in when all of a sudden a man who looked identical to my husband emerged from one of the eggs. Men in white overalls came into the room and handed him the clothes my other husband was wearing before he was eaten alive. I jumped in my car and made it home before whatever came out of that egg did. I sat in the kitchen, contemplating packing my bags and getting as far away as possible when suddenly my husband's car pulled up into the drive. He came through into the kitchen with a big smile on his face and all his injuries magically healed. "What happened to your broken arm, and don't lie to me?" I demanded. My body was still shaking from earlier, and I wasn't sure if I was safe with the thing that looked like my husband. "I don't know what you're talking about, honey. All I know is I woke up feeling like a brand new man today. I followed you to that abandoned building today. I saw what happened. I saw you hatch from that egg." The man who looked like my husband had a look on his face as if he had just lost a hand of poker. "I promise, I'm still the man you married. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to worry you, but I was dying. Remember a few months ago when I was having trouble with my digestion? It turned out I had stage 4 stomach cancer. What does that have to do with a giant praying mantis?" I asked. That praying mantis was the answer to my prayers. I'm cured and feel better than I ever felt. I swear to you, I'm still the man you married. A part of me believed him, and he did look healthier, I thought to myself as I walked over and threw my arms around him. But just as I was about to forgive him, I watched as a green translucent film of flesh spread across his eyeballs as he blinked, sending a shiver of dread down my spine.